So after playing about 30 to 40 hours of the final beta for Honkai Star Rail, I decided to gather my thoughts and put into this video. So hopefully you guys find this video informative, but before we begin, here's a message from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is brought to you by Final Fantasy XIV Online. Final Fantasy XIV Online is an MMORPG set in the world called Eorzea, where you can meet other players around the world and interact with them, making friends, tackling content together, whether it be story content or high-end content. You will also meet iconic NPCs throughout the story who will help you throughout your journey and making great memories during your time in Eorzea. The free trial also allows you to play up to 14 different jobs, including some of the fan favourites throughout the Final Fantasy universe, like Monk, Ninja or Dragoon. This can all be done on a single character, so there's no need to be making multiple characters to enjoy different jobs. The free trial also comes with one of the best expansions for the game, Heavensward, which gives you more story to follow and more battles to encounter. So if you're looking to sink hundreds of hours into a new game or need a new MMO to play, then check out the link in the description below. And maybe I hope to see you guys in there. So with all that said, let's get into this whole video now pretty much. So story-wise, Honkai Star Rail is a parallel universe to Honkai Impact 3rd. So some say it is also like a sequel to it as well, but yeah, we won't go into that one yet. So essentially, you'll see a lot of familiar characters that you've seen from the Honkai Impact 3rd series in this game in like somewhat of a different capacity. Some of them might still retain like some of their personalities from the previous game and all that stuff as well. Now, the story itself starts off with two crew members on the Astral Express called March 7th and Dan Hong, delivering rare relics to Hetra on the space station, which is disrupted by the Void Rangers. While all this is happening, two Stellaron hunters named Kafka and Silver Wolf sneak aboard on the space station and use the chaos as a distraction to steal a Stellaron by their leader named Elio, who has the power to see into the future. Now, after finding the Stellaron, they used it to create a Trailblazer, or an artificial human, who is pretty much the main protagonist of this story, which is us that's playing the character pretty much. Obviously, you can choose between male or female, but essentially the story will play out the same. Now, I won't go too much into the story as the story was cut off. After a certain point, we did get to explore the whole first world and the part of the second world that was partly new. I think there was a bit more added to it this time compared to the last beta. I didn't get to play the last beta because I didn't get in, but there was a fair amount to do. Story-wise, it was actually quite interesting. Like cutscene-wise, it was quite interesting as well. Voice acting was pretty solid. Yes, I played in English. I know some people don't like that, but honestly, they done quite well for the English voice actors. And honestly, yeah, I'm actually looking really forward to the story, because I've always heard that Honkai Impact has been a story-driven game. I didn't play it as much, but I did watch a fair amount of it, so I think before this I'd actually go and watch like the whole thing. But overall, story-wise, yeah, it's looking to be really good so far. Now, the combat in Honkai Star Rail is turn-based this time instead of being action for like most of the games that Hoyoverse release these days. And this is where I feel people might or might not like the game as much, mainly because we know turn-based is definitely not everyone's cup of tea, honestly. And for me, I actually enjoy turn-based for the most part, because yeah, you can get screwed over a lot of times due to like RNG and all that, but it is fun. It gives like a sense of, I guess, thinking of your strategies before just diving into battle, because in certain other games like Genshin or whatever, you can literally just run more or less any team that's somewhat relatively built and you can just shred through like half the content anymore now. It's like quite the joke. But honestly, I feel my time playing the beta, the combat was actually very satisfying. Now, to give a bit more detail on the combat, I'll talk about pretty much the stuff that you see at the start of the game when you're doing your tutorial, pretty much, I would say. So before entering combat, you usually have the option to use your character's abilities to like buff yourself. So, or well, not even just buff yourself, but debuff enemies as well. So for example, you can buff yourself to give more attack. You can use a character's ability to slow down the enemy. So essentially they have you have more time to attack them more or less in the fight. You can also use it to gain defense as well. There's a lot of them to be done in the game, so it just depends on like what character you have more or less. Also, before entering the battle, you also see the enemy and what they're weak to. So sometimes they could be weak to wind, imaginary, or shock. Literally, they usually have 3 weaknesses all the time. So if you have a character that has that attribute or element, I should say, then attacking with them will give you like a big bonus advantage when entering the battle. Now, once you enter in the battle, you would see that there are a few stuff to see on the screen. So on the top left, you'll see your characters and the enemies and whose turn it is to go. So you can like pretty much plan what to do or what moves to use. Pretty much the standard for like most turn-based games these days now. And then on the bottom left, you'll see the character's health, their ultimate gauge. So anytime you do like an attack or an E skill, your ultimate gauge will essentially increase before being full for you to allow you to use it. Then if you look at the bottom right, that you'll see the character's 2 skills along with stacks, which are essential for you to use in your E skill, as what you'd be using if you're using a keyboard or mouse. I'm not too sure what the combination it is for controller, but essentially you have up to 5 stacks, or you gain up to 5 stacks when you use your normal attacks, which is your Q attack. And then if you're using your E skill, you'll deplete one of the stacks and literally deal insane, I wouldn't say insane damage, but it just depends on the character. Some of them have AoEs for attacks, some of them also have singular attacks, and then some of them also have like stuff to buff your teammates, debuff the enemies, heal yourselves, revive if needed be. But that's quite rare, honestly, in this game. You need a special character for that one. But yeah, that is pretty much the B&B for combat. Now, you'll probably see when you go into battle, you see the character. Again, I said this before you enter the battles, you would see their weaknesses. But when you enter the battle, you also see it, but you'll also see their stamina bar as well, apart from their health bar. So this stamina bar works similar to games that tend to have like stagger. So in a sense, Final Fantasy or Trails series, now that was introduced in Cold Steel 3. So if you're familiar with them series, you'll easily get this whole staggered mechanic and everything. So essentially, for you to deplete their stamina gauge, which is the white bar on top of their health, you essentially have to attack them with their weakness. So some of them might be weak to fire, electric, wind, normal, imaginary. I can't remember what the other was. There was like a 5th one, I can't remember what it was called, but essentially you'll see what they're weak to. And most mobs tend to be easily staggered. Literally you can do it with like a move or 2 pretty much, and then once they're staggered, that's when they'll be more susceptible to dots. So literally you can have wind sear on them, burn, freeze, shock. Shock basically works as a thing where if one person has it, they essentially hit like the 2 others that are next to them as well, which is really good in this game. There's pretty much a lot to work with, so essentially you always want to stagger them in some capacity, or essentially just wipe out their whole stagger meter just to like inflict even more damage onto them. Because if you're not really trying to do that and you're just trying to brute force, essentially you're going to be in the battles for a long time. And while it can work for mobs, or trash mobs I should say, when it comes to like higher tier mobs and bosses, yeah, you're just going to have a hard time, honestly. With all that said, that is basically combat for you. This is where you pretty much have to somewhat balance your team. Yeah, you can always go guns blazing with all DPS, but sometimes you might need someone that can buff, someone that can heal, especially for like later content in the game that I tackled. So there's a thing called Abyss, or there's an Abyss type mode in the game, similar to what Genshin has, but I'd say a bit more refined. And that one there, you have to actually play it very smart, because one false move and that's it pretty much. Now, combat can also be done with auto mode, which is very helpful when farming like dungeons for materials and stuff pretty much, or just the general outside world where you're exploring. Because you know, this type of game, or not even this type of game, most gacha games tend to have like an auto mode and a speed up function to go with it as well, just to like make the process a bit more bearable. And auto mode suggests what it does pretty much. It just goes guns blazing. It will just use whatever moves whenever, including your ultimates as well. Usually when your ultimates are up, they will just use it instantly, and sometimes it's not really needed. So There is a workaround to that. There is an option in the settings for you to disable using ultimates during auto mode, but what I would like for them to do is incorporate it into the actual fight itself, so you can actually just toggle it in between, you know, because there are times where I actually forgot I disabled it. I'm like, yo, why is my ultimate not going off? And I'm there having to press it sometimes, but then I see that I haven't turned it back on after a while. So hopefully in the full game they can actually add that in, but we shall see. But yeah, auto mode is quite good, very helpful. You can get away with it in using certain bosses, honestly, but there are times where it actually locks you out of using auto mode because it's like a story boss or something. So they actually want you to try and attempt to do instead of just going full auto mode pretty much. I don't know, maybe in the future they might just scrap that whole thing and say, you know what, you can use auto mode for every goddamn battle in the game. But I think if that's the case, then it's just going to take away like some sort of skill, honestly. But again, we just have to wait until the game comes out. Now, all that said about combat, we come to the exploration in Star Rail. Now, in the beta, exploration was fairly good to an extent. It wasn't like old Genshin style where you can fly and traverse mountains and all that stuff. This one is literally stay grounded. You go from point A to point B pretty much. They're like different sub areas in certain places that you go to. The maps are honestly quite small, which is to be expected, honestly. I think for a game like this, you don't need it to be like super open world. I mean, they probably could do it, but then they'll probably have to incorporate like ways to traverse the area much faster, because just running with the character honestly is quite slow sometimes. And the fact that you can't even jump or anything as well is it took some time to get used to, because literally I was playing Genshin for so long and then I was like, yo, I can't jump. I was like, what? But honestly, exploration is not even that bad in this game. It's actually quite enjoyable to an extent because it's so scaled down. Finding like, or not even finding 100% in areas is a lot easier, mainly because they actually say how many treasure chests are in that specific area, and then you can easily just say, okay, I've got this amount and I'm missing a few more. And some of these treasure chests are locked behind story like progression, or visiting a certain area, or doing a certain quest. So sometimes you cannot 100% an area as soon as you see a new area, but it's nice to know that they actually added in the future saying you got this many chests left in the area. So it helps when you're trying to essentially just gain more materials, more rolls, more currency. You know, everything helps, especially if you're going free to play. There are puzzles in the game as well, in the open world, and these are somewhat easy and not too hard. I know some of them are tied behind like daily quests and stuff as well, but most of them are pretty simple, straightforward. There was only one where I struggled, and that was one of the box puzzles in the first world that you visit. And honestly, it probably took me maybe like 30 minutes to get it done, mainly because my brain was just so fried at that point. But honestly, the puzzles in the game were super simple for the most part. I think maybe in the future they could add in a bit more challenging ones to give better rewards or something different, because honestly after a while I think it just got not even tedious, but I was just finding it too easy to be done. Obviously that's just me. For some other people it could be a whole different scenario for them. I know some people hate puzzles, but at the end of the day, that's what YouTube's for. You know, you'll have a bunch of people uploading puzzle tutorials and all that stuff and how to get it done. So yeah, you're not really gonna miss out much there. But it's good that they have it in there to give us rewards and stuff, because honestly it's kind of needed in this game. But yeah, exploration in the game is fairly decent. You have your fast travel points to go from point A to point B. Obviously these areas, or dungeons I should say, that you want to fast travel to, you even need to actually go to them once at least. So yeah, I can't really complain about that, you know. Honestly, it felt quite good. Maybe they could add something to make us explore the world a bit faster, maybe a little fast forward button when you're in the open world, but I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. And now to the main, I wouldn't even say issue, but the main point for most people when it comes to these games, and that is the gacha system and rewards. So like pretty much every mobile gacha game that there is to this day and age, pretty much, there's always a system where it's needed if you wanted to gain a new character or more constellations or like different weapons and stuff. But this game don't really have weapons. It's called paths, I think. Essentially it's like weapons in a sense, but I'll dive deeper into that one when the full game comes out, because maybe they might have changed some stuff here and there. But the gacha system in itself was not bad, but not great either. Honestly, maybe it's because it's just my luck, but honestly, it weren't too bad. It's literally the standard one. You know, you have your 10 pulls where you can get a guaranteed 4-star, and then like, after like 80 or so 10 pulls or whatever, not 10 pulls, or like 80 pulls in general, so like 8-10 pulls, whatever, there's a chance for you to get like a 5-star or something. Obviously it's not going to be guaranteed on what 5-star you get, unless it's a specific banner. Even then you can still get screwed over, but I think they still have that system in Genshin where if you don't get it first and the second time you do it, it's like 100%. But obviously I didn't do too many pulls because I said, you know what, let me try this whole free-to-play thing at least for a while, like try maximize it as much as possible before running over to like do pulls and stuff. But honestly, with the characters that they give you in the game, like the starting 4-star character stuff, they're really good, like really good, to the point I think even before, and I think the second beta some of them was stupidly powerful that they actually had to nerf them a bit because they'll just like absolutely shred certain enemies. But yeah, if you're one of those guys that wailed, then yeah, don't worry about it, man. You just do whatever you want, honestly. But yeah, in terms of like gaining currency to do like the pulls and stuff, there's like a lot of ways to do it. So you have story missions, you have side missions, you have stuff from the NPC vendors. So essentially those NPC vendors, you spend the currency you find in that area from like quests and whatnot and treasure chests, you'll spend at their shop to gain like items and stuff to help you. And then once you reach a certain level or something like that, pretty much, then you go up to like the next level and they'll give you rewards and stuff. So there's a lot of ways to get the currency to do pulls. And honestly speaking, there was like, fair enough, it's at the start of the game, but there's so much to the point where you can just hoard it for so long before using any of it, really. You also get stuff from when you level up your adventure rank or trailblaze level. I think it's called trailblaze level, one of the two, but yeah, you always get something from them. There's essentially a lot of ways to get pulls, so you won't be short of any at the start until maybe you finish like the first 2 worlds, and then after that, that's where it might start to dwindle down a bit. But you also have like dailies to do. So yeah, there's a bunch to be done, a lot to be done. So yeah, if you feel that you don't want to spend as much, honestly, I'd say just explore the world as much as you can. And then eventually when you reach that point where you might need to start rolling, you probably have more than enough to do like a roll to get a 5-star easily. But then there's also the battle pass system as well. So if you've played Genshin, pretty much all these other mobile games, they tend to have like a battle pass system where you gain rewards when you level it up. You also have the free one that everyone gets, and then you also have the premium paid one, which you need to pay probably like what, a tenner for it or so, and you get even more rewards and sometimes like even more currency for the pulls and stuff as well. So yeah, there's a fair amount to do for like gaining currency to do pulls and stuff. But honestly speaking, you don't need to blast it all in one go. Now, will they actually keep all of this stuff in the full game? I would assume so. I don't think they'll adjust like how much you'd be getting from like certain quests and stuff as well, because I think they're like quite generous, honestly. So yeah, there's really no need for them to change what is. Maybe they can just give us more free stuff, but you know, that's just wishful thinking at that point. With all that said and done, honestly, my experience on the final beta was more or less positive, like quite positive, honestly. I didn't really have too many issues with the game. Obviously I didn't go too hard because I know it was just going to get deleted at some point. I'd done that with Genshin and I kind of regretted it because I was so burnt out when the game came out. But I've done a fair amount of content. I think the balance in the game is good enough for now. Obviously, that's my opinion. I don't know if Hoyoverse will see it as that way. Maybe knowing them, they'll probably end up just nerfing characters. They'll probably see like, oh, this video on YouTube, he's doing this much damage, let's nerf it down. And then yeah, that character just becomes somewhat shit or like pretty much. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it's a game that I think people should give a chance when it does come out. I know not everyone likes turn-based, but you know, there's no harm in trying. It is free, so it's not going to cost your wallet. If you enjoy, say, turn-based Kiseki games or Final Fantasy or whatever, then honestly, this game's like a no-brainer for you. The only issue I'd say is that if you have a lot more gacha games that you're playing right now, I don't think adding another one is advisable, because you're literally just gonna like have no time for anything else pretty much, unless those other gacha games you're like max level and you're just doing dailies or whatever and calling it a day. Then yeah, you can add something in. Now, will it have the same impact as Genshin did when it came out? Probably not, but I don't think the game will die out so easily. I think the game will have a steady life cycle. So yeah, I hope this helps. I hope it gave you guys a bit of an insight onto how the game will be when it does come out. Hope you enjoyed my impressions of the final beta. I know it was supposed to be coming out way earlier, but I wasn't too sure. And then when I wanted to do it, I ended up falling sick a bit. You could probably hear it in my voice. It's not as clear, even though my voice is never clear in the first place. But yeah, you can probably hear that there's like a bit of like mucus and all that stuff. But anyways, I hope that all helps, and I hope to see you guys in the full game. And when the full game does come out, I'll probably do a review of it after I've like done all the story content to it, which will probably be like in a day or so pretty much. So yeah, thanks for coming, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.